Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome back to my reading life. Today I am here with the second entry in my Author Spotlight video series, and we're going to focus on none other than the Queen of Mystery herself, Agatha Christie. She has been a part of my reading life since my early teens, and I'm going to take you along on my reading journey with Agatha Christie and share some of my favorite books, some of the books I think you might want to read if you've never read her before, and share a little bit about what I love about Agatha Christie. As I mentioned in the intro, I've been reading Agatha Christie for a very long time. I believe I read my first Agatha Christie when I was either 11 or 12. And of course, I read one of her most famous stories first, and that was And Then There Were None. It went by a different title at the time. It's gone through a few iterations of different titles, but I think And Then There Were None really captures the spirit of this book. And it was a wonderful introduction to Agatha Christie. Though I had known who she was, or that she was a mystery writer, for a very long time because my mom read so many Agatha Christie novels when I was growing up. She was always checking them out from the library. I remember when we used to take our family vacations in the summertime, she would be reading them on the beach. And sometimes she would get almost to the very end and she would suddenly realize that she had already read that book, and she remembered suddenly who had done it. But up until that point, she had felt like she was reading the book for the first time. That has happened to me as well. Less so now that I have Goodreads, where I can keep track of all of my Agatha Christie books that I've read and easily have it at my fingertips. And I do sometimes like to reread her mysteries. I have found that I really enjoy going back to them because whether I remember who done it or not, if I remember who done it, it is wonderful to see how she plots out the mystery, how she plants those clues, how she gives us those little indications as to who the murderer or the culprit is. And if I don't remember, sometimes it's fun to read them and see if at some point I suddenly do have that aha moment where I do remember who the murderer is. And her books are just so wonderful, and I definitely think they can be read again and again. Ever since I was very young, I have always been drawn to puzzles, to mysteries, and I think that is what really drew me into Agatha Christie when I first started reading her. I've been a fan of puzzles and mysteries since I was very little. I think from discovering things like Encyclopedia Brown, Nancy Drew, the Bobbsey twins, all the way up to, of course, Agatha Christie. I just like to try to figure things out, even though I often don't figure them out in mysteries. And I actually like it when I can't figure it out, or if I don't figure it out until right before the reveal. I find if I figure it out too soon in the story, then I'm just turning the pages, waiting for that reveal, and some of the magic goes out of that story a little bit. So I do like to not be able to figure it out, though it is fun to do it right before it's revealed. And then if I don't even figure it out then, and not until it's actually revealed, and then, oh, of course, that's who it had to have been, that is also fun. Makes me think that author is very, very clever, and Agatha Christie is one of the best at doing that. I rarely solve her mysteries before the reveal. And even though I've been reading Agatha Christie since I was very young, I really got into reading her and actually listening to her books on audio when I was in my 20s and I had to commute to work. And I discovered that you could get the audiobooks on CD from the library, and I would check them out on a constant rotation. Whichever one was available, that is the one I would check out. Often I would have 2 or 3 audiobooks checked out at once, and I would just work my way through them, and I would listen to them to and from work every day, and I really looked forward to that. It really helped those long commute hours sitting in traffic. And what better way to get through that time than spending it with Agatha Christie, especially the Poirot novels narrated by Hugh Fraser. I have very fond memories of listening to those in my car. And yes, that really was sort of when I ramped up into really becoming such an avid fan of her books and really just started to devour them. I think what I really love about Agatha Christie's books is that it's more about solving the puzzle than it is about the gory details of this crime. So a crime happens, almost always happens off the page. You get very few details. I mean, the person was stabbed or shot or poisoned or what have you, and then you sort of move on from that, and it's all about solving the puzzle. And like I mentioned before, I really do love puzzles. And I just love all of the atmosphere, all of the different settings. I love from London to English village life and everything in between. She also takes us to exotic locations. She spent lots of time in the Middle East, so many of her books and short stories are set there, and she really knows whereof she speaks, and she does such a wonderful job of evoking those locations. And I really love to read those novels, especially in the summertime. I just feel like those hot, sort of deserty climates just feel like the perfect types of mysteries to read in the summer. Now we are going to get into some of her specific novels, but before we do that, I do want to mention that I actually have an older video where I shared my top 10 favorite Agatha Christie novels. I will link that here in the cards and in the description box, and I would love it if you would go and check that out. I'm not going to talk about all of those books in this video, but I am going to mention a few of them that are from that video. But if you want to see the complete list of my top 10 favorites, and I still think I stand by those top 10, I don't think anything's changed since I filmed that video, but definitely go and give that a watch. And I'd love to hear what some of your favorite Agatha Christie books, if you wanted to leave a comment on that video. But for today, I think I'm going to share just a few highlights, especially some books that I don't often hear talked about when we hear about Agatha Christie. I thought I would share some of my favorites of hers in a few different categories. And first up, I'm going to share what I think is one of her coziest mysteries, and that is The Moving Finger. And this is a Miss Marple mystery, though Miss Marple only figures in it very briefly. We mainly follow a brother and sister who are staying in a small village while the brother recuperates from an accident, and there are poison pen letters that start going around, and they decide to find out what is going on and who is sending these letters. So we have lots of cozy village life, and I think this is one that is not mentioned that often and is a little bit underrated. And even though I was a bit disappointed that it's called a Miss Marple, even though, like I said, she doesn't really come in until the very end of this book, but just if you look at it as just a mystery in and of itself, taking Miss Marple out of the equation, I really love this one. And while a lot of the Miss Marples are very, very cozy, I think if you are looking for that true English village mystery experience, I think The Moving Finger is an excellent example of that, and I highly recommend it. Now, if you are here and you have never read Agatha Christie before, and I do occasionally have people ask me which of her books I recommend you start with, and honestly, you cannot go wrong with her most famous books as a place to start, either with the one I began with, which is And Then There Were None, or Poirot's Murder on the Orient Express. This is not the first Poirot, but I think it is an excellent one to start with. The mystery in this is so, so good. The mysteries in both of these are fantastic, and I highly recommend them. I think they make an excellent place to start with Agatha Christie, and if you've never read her before, probably one of these two is your best bet. And my next recommendation is for one of Christie's books that I think has one of the best plot twists in it, and that is The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. This is another Miss Marple, and it is my very favorite Miss Marple. It is so good. In this, we follow a famous actress, and one of her fans comes to like a meet and greet with her and is talking with her, and this fan is poisoned. And the police think that the poison was intended for the actress, and Miss Marple is on hand to figure out what exactly the intention was of the poisoner, who was the intended victim, and what all is going on. And I think I gasped out loud when the reveal happened in this one. It is so good, so clever. I adore this one. Miss Marple plays a big role in this, which I absolutely love because that is the one thing about Miss Marple's. I always want more of her, especially in the novels. The short stories, there's often lots of Miss Marple, but in the full-length novels, a lot of times she doesn't appear in many of the scenes, and I always find that disappointing. So this one has lots of Miss Marple and is so good, so clever. And then my next recommendation is an underrated gem. Well, I think a few of these that I've already talked about are underrated gems, but this one is probably my number one underrated Agatha Christie novel, and that is Sad Cypress. And Sad Cypress has a very different structure from a lot of Agatha Christie's novels in that it starts with a court case. So we have a woman accused of murder and she is standing trial for that. And Hercule Poirot is really the only one who thinks she might be innocent. And so from there, we go back to the original crime and we kind of follow along with what's happening. And can Poirot find out who actually done it and whether or not she's actually innocent before it is too late. So this is a fantastic page turner of a mystery, and I don't know why people don't mention this one enough. I absolutely love it. I love this cover as well. It is gorgeous. And if you've never read Sad Cypress and you want something that's structured just a little bit different than some of her other novels, then definitely give Sad Cypress a try. Then next up, I thought I would recommend, actually I have two recommendations for Christie books that I think are perfect for winter reading. And first up is a short story collection. I really love that they have been republishing seasonal short story collections of Agatha Christie's, and I highly recommend them. And Midwinter Murder is, of course, the perfect one for the winter season. Many of these short stories are collected in other short story collections, but these are all set during the winter time and they are wonderfully atmospheric. I really enjoyed this collection. I thought it was really a great grouping of her short stories and I liked them all, and I had a few favorite standouts in this. I think The Chocolate Box, Christmas Murder, and A Christmas Tragedy are three of my favorites in this collection, but really I think this is perfect for picking up at this time of the year. And then if you prefer to read a novel instead of short stories, then absolutely the one you need to read in winter is The Sitterford Mystery. This is so wintry and so wonderful. In this we have a seance, a plucky female sleuth, which is one of my favorite aspects of Christie's standalone novels, and a very wintry setting. And if you're looking for a mystery to cozy up with by the fire on long winter's night, then definitely give The Sitterford Mystery a try. Now, I already mentioned that if you're new to Agatha Christie, I think that And Then There Were None and The Murder on the Orient Express are wonderful places to start. But I also thought I'd give you a couple of other options. One, if you're interested in starting with Miss Marple, and then a couple others if you're interested in starting with Hercule Poirot. Now, if you're interested in starting with Miss Marple, I do think reading the very first Miss Marple mystery, Murder at the Vicarage, is a wonderful place to start. It's a great introduction to Miss Marple. She plays a very significant role in that mystery, and you really can't go wrong with it. And then if you've already read Murder on the Orient Express, or you want to start somewhere else with Hercule Poirot, then I recommend two other mysteries. The first is the very first Hercule Poirot mystery, which is The Mysterious Affair at Styles. A great mystery, though you can definitely tell that Christie was at the beginning of her craft with this book, which is why it's fun to read it first and then move on from there and see how she grows, how her skills improve as a mystery writer as she goes along. If you don't want to start with the first Hercule Poirot, then I definitely think you should read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Again, this is another very clever mystery, and I'm not going to say anything about it because this one, just go in and read it and don't read anything about it. It is wonderfully done, and when you finish it, you're going to want to go back and read it again so that you can figure out exactly how she did it. And then finally, I thought I'd share a few nonfiction recommendations if you are an Agatha Christie fan that you should definitely give a read to. The first is, of course, Agatha Christie's autobiography. And I cannot recommend this enough if you want to learn all about Agatha Christie's life. This is a wonderful, wonderful autobiography, and she talks really about all aspects of her life. She doesn't really explain where she was when she went missing during that short period of time in her early married life. But other than that, she really gives you a pretty in-depth look at herself. And I think that one is fantastic. And if you want to read a wonderful biography of Agatha Christie, Lucy Worsley's biography that just recently came out, was it earlier this year? I think it was earlier this year, is a wonderful biography of Agatha Christie. And she does surmise what happened with Agatha Christie during that missing time period. And I think she has a pretty good idea of what might have happened. And then next, I recommend a memoir by Agatha Christie. And this is a book that's been sitting on my shelf for a long time. I finally picked it up this summer. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I was worried it was going to be a little bit dry. I don't know why I was worried, because I love Agatha Christie's writing, and this is no exception. And that is Come Tell Me How You Live. And this is all about Agatha Christie and her second husband, Max Mallowan, and about their archaeological digs in the Middle East and that experience. And it was so fascinating. I absolutely loved this. She has such a wonderful tone in this memoir, and you really hear her voice coming through, and I couldn't get enough of it. Couldn't put it down. Highly recommend it. So definitely give this a read, especially if you're a fan of her mysteries set in the Middle East, which I most definitely am. And this makes a wonderful accompaniment to those novels. And then finally, a very fun book that I think no Agatha Christie fan should be without, and that is Agatha Christie, The Complete Secret Notebooks. Now, this is a compilation compiled by John Curran of all of Agatha Christie's notes. She wrote notes in multitudes of notebooks on scraps of paper. People were just constantly, she was constantly just picking up whatever was near her to write ideas down on. John Curran had the approval of the Agatha Christie estate to go in and go through all of her notebooks and compile them into this book. And this is the revised edition, and it has even more than the original Secret Notebook. So you can find these, the original edition, you'll often find it used. I will link this Complete Secret Notebooks in the description box below if you're interested in this revised one that is expanded. But it is fantastic, and I love to go in here after I read one of her novels and then read the notes that are in here. And sometimes there's not very much, sometimes there's a lot. It really just depends. She was a writer, and sometimes she wrote down a lot of notes and outlines and things like that, and sometimes she just jotted random words down. But it's just really kind of fun to see the inner workings of her mind as she was writing all of these amazing stories. I have read most of Agatha Christie's books and short stories. There are still a few that I have not read. I will insert a little video here of the few that I have on my shelf that I have still to read. And then I think I have a few more beyond this that I don't own that I need to read. So I only have a little bit left to go. And part of me has kind of backed off and slowed down because I don't want to be done, even though I do love to reread her books. But I am going to finish it. The completionist in me does want to do that. And yes, so I have some of her mysteries, mostly I think short story collections. And then I do have a few of her novels written as Mary Westmacott, which aren't really mysteries. Some of them are romances or kind of romantic suspense kind of books. I've read 2 of them, and I have however many others she wrote. I think she wrote maybe 6 or 7 or so under that pseudonym. So I do have those to finish reading, but I'm very close to being a completionist, and that's going to feel so satisfying, even if I've been putting it off. And that will wrap up my spotlight on Agatha Christie, and I would love to chat with you down in the comments. Share your favorite Agatha Christie books with me. Share how many you've read. Let me know if you've never read her, but if you're interested in starting and thinking about picking up one of her books after having watched this video, Let us just chat all things Agatha Christie down in the comments below. I just love her. She's the queen for a reason, and her books are just fantastic. You cannot go wrong, especially if you're a mystery fan. She's just the best. And if you're here but you don't have anything you'd like to add in the comments and you want to let me know that you were here, why don't you leave me the little mystery spyglass detective person, or I think there's just a spyglass, or even just books, whatever you'd like. Leave me some emojis down in the comments below so that I know you were here, and those comments really do help my channel. And if you enjoyed this video, if you could hit that like button, and I would love it if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you join my cozy corner of BookTube. And thank you for being here and taking time out of your day to spend it with me. And thank you always for leaving such lovely comments. I am doing my best to keep up with all of them. There have been so many comments recently. I so appreciate it. All of your support, all of your kind words, and let us have more bookish conversations down here in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye.